Hello everybody and welcome to episode 9 of the 12 Days of WrestleMas, the Christmas special edition from the Win Twice Wrestling podcast. And Holly, what have we got for today's topic of conversation?
What if?
What if? The big question. So, picking a moment in wrestling, we can discuss a few to be fair if you have more than one, to see what is the biggest what if that you can think of in wrestling and what ramifications that could have potentially had or completely unknown. I assume based on, again, the look on your face, you'd quite like me to start off on this one. Okay, so for me, there's a few that come to mind, and I'll briefly go over them if you'll be so kind as to allow me to do that. No? Okay, alright, then you'll go. So the first one for me is, what if WrestleMania never happened?
Okay.
What would the wrestling world look like now? Would there even be professional wrestling as we know it? Because historically speaking, when Vince McMahon and Linda McMahon held WrestleMania in the first place, they put all their eggs in that basket. They were going to live or die by how WrestleMania panned out. Fortunately, it worked fine. They had the rock and wrestling connection. They had celebrities involved. It was a big success. They went from strength to strength from there. But what if it just didn't work? What if there was no... What if... I mean, here's the biggest what if, because do you know what they nearly called WrestleMania in the first place?
No.
So, Vince McMahon's initial idea...
Is it as shite as the one that AEW named their version of, like, Wrestle Dream or something ridiculous?
Wrestle Dream would have been an upgrade on this. So, Vince McMahon's initial idea for what he was going to call WrestleMania was the Colossal Tussle.
Huh. Okay.
Let that one a bit shit.
A bit shit.
I was going to say, let that digest.
Colossal Tussle.
The Colossal Tussle.
Doesn't even roll off the tongue.
No, that's not the only issue with it. To be honest, it's just awful. And the person that was credited, well, not credited, but I think it's generally acknowledged that they came up with the idea for the WrestleMania name, was Howard Finkel, the ring announcer.
Okay.
So, yeah, they went with WrestleMania, which I think is probably the right way to go about things. I mean, it's easy for us to say, 40 years down the line that it was the right call. But I just find it fascinating to think what would have happened, because at the time, the WWF was still very much in competition with the National Wrestling Alliance and Jim Crockett Promotions. Would they have taken on the mantle? Because I know they were thinking of doing big shows of a similar nature to WrestleMania. Would that have taken off, or would that have failed? Would both industries or both businesses fallen away in the industry? Like I said, we might not have had anything that came out of it. It could be something simple as, like, then would The Rock be a film star now? Like, it would knock on and butterfly effect everything that's taken place since. And I just think the number of permutations as to what could have happened if it didn't go as well as it had is fascinating. Yeah. I think you could do... I mean, it would be very boring, but you could write a lot of dissertations on the possibilities from this. So that's the one I think of. There's... it's going to be a general phrase, but I'll be more specific. Like, just with regards to deaths in wrestling. Like, if this person hadn't died when they did. A number come to mind. Like, so for example, the big one that stands out though to me is Owen Hart.
Yes.
Especially in the manner.
Oh my God, that's insane.
In which he passed away.
Awful.
So, rappelling down from the rope, there was a technical issue, the harness broke, he came down, died. And then I think, for me, the fact that they carried on with the show after that is deplorable.
I don't understand why you wouldn't just off-air, done.
Yeah.
Like,
by all means, cut to the announcers and say, a terrible accident's had to place, we're so sorry for this. Yeah. Some things are more important than this, we've got to end it, cut. Yeah. No one is going to say, who in that arena is going to say, oh no, they should have carried on?
No one.
I've heard on various podcasts and I've read in a few places about people's perspective who were in the arena at the time for it. And I think all of them, to a person, said they shouldn't have carried on. But then
also, how are you staying and clapping and cheering for anything else? Well,
especially, and imagine the wrestlers coming out next and there's a little dent in the ring with blood from where he landed. Like, it's one of the most surreal events that's ever happened in wrestling. Don't get me wrong, there's been wrestling deaths where other people have died in the ring. Mitsuharu Misawa in Japan, who you won't know, he was hit with a backdrop driver, landed on his neck, and his neck separated from his spine.
Jesus.
Died on the spot. There was the incident in Mexico with Rey Mysterio, did the 619 on someone, and I've seen that, and I still don't understand how the guy died, because it was him hitting the ropes. It wasn't the. But again, so it's not that it's unheard of that it happens, but the Owen Hart one was the first real incident of this nature that I remember, and I don't think, obviously, I would have been about, I think, 10 at the time, 9, 10 at the time, and I didn't watch the pay-per-view, but I remember reading the stuff afterwards, and part of me actually thought, was that real?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know I mean, I didn't really have a massive concept of death. You know, you hear about it, but no one in my family at that point had died, so I didn't really have a real world experience from it. And I just thought, oh, that's a weird story that they're trying to tell, and it didn't really sink in, but just horrendous. That whole way that was dealt with, not that there's necessarily a good way to deal with it, but there's definitely a wrong way to deal with it, and I felt like that's what WWF at the time did. Yeah. So what if Owen Hart hadn't died? What if, again, if we're going to wrestling related deaths, what if drugs weren't so prevalent in the wrestling business? How many people would they find a different vice which would have caused issues, or would we have people that are still kicking around now that have been dead for decades? Like Brian Pillman is a name that comes to mind. He died, was it late 90s, from a overdose, and it all stemmed from an injury he had on his ankle, I think. I think it was a car crash or something, damaged his ankle, got addicted to painkillers, never really came back. And the list goes on and on and on. So what if wrestling wasn't so damn difficult to, not fall in love with people, but get emotionally invested with someone when they so frequently die? Yeah. Bit of a dark topic, especially when we're celebrating Christmas. I know. So I'll swivel and come back to a bit more of a positive note, unless I don't know if yours is a negative or a positive. Yours is negative. Okay,
very much so. I was waiting for you to just say it, I'll be honest.
No, right, so I'll let you say yours now. I'll try and finish on more of a positive note.
Yeah, so the only one, I really struggled with this because I don't actually know why, so there's no because. I just really struggled with thinking of anything, but mine, I suppose, is just what if Eddie Guerrero hadn't passed away when he did?
So, in terms of how it impacted his individual career, or how it then had a knock-on effect?
I think everything.
Okay.
His career, I suppose, to an extent. Like, also for me, I feel like he was so highly celebrated once he'd passed, but I just think I always think, obviously you can never do this, so this is ridiculous, but you can never celebrate someone when they're here. Like, why do they have to, like, die, effectively, for everyone to stand and be like, fuck, he was actually really good?
Because people don't know what they have until they don't have it.
It's boggling, but obviously understandable. But I also think, let's be a bit more lighthearted, because this is well depressing, but do we really think that if he was still here now, not necessarily in a full-time wrestling capacity, I mean, I don't see why not, because Rey Mysterio still is, but
Eddie's significantly older.
Would Dominic be in the position that he's in right now? Let's make it lighthearted.
Okay.
Because there was that whole storyline ages ago and all that jazz.
So, I think, but Dominic already had his moment at SummerSlam in 2005 when Eddie was around, so he would have had that moment for sure. I guess the knock-on effect of Eddie passing away was the Rey Mysterio getting the title. Would he have ever got the title? Potentially not. I still think Dominic would probably be in the position where he is.
I mean, it annoys me because I don't actually hate it. I think they've done it. I think that's actually one storyline they've done very well.
Yeah, he's naturally quite dislikable, isn't he? Even when he was a good guy.
He plays it very well.
He does.
Even in the Hall of Fame, you can see him in the background when Rey Mysterio obviously got his award or whatever they call it. He's literally there in the background, like, pretending like he doesn't give an absolute shit, and I think that's brilliant.
And I actually think he's probably a very nice guy as well. From everything.
An awful haircut, but apart from that,
when there's certain points where it's greasy, and I go, it works. I mean, you wouldn't rock around you wouldn't go around Walmart or Walgreens or whatever they got in the States and go shopping with that look. But hey, maybe you do in some parts. I don't know. But yeah, that's quite a light-hearted one. I guess the one I was going to touch upon is, it's not light-hearted, but it's not as dark as some of the other topics we've touched upon, is WCW, if they had stayed in business. Let's say a financial backer came in. I don't know at what point we'd, diverge the reality story arc of when my version would come in, but that they still survived. But it would be interesting now to see the landscape. Would we have seen anything like AEW down the line? Would we have needed to?
True.
Would WCW have consumed WWF? How would this be looked at? Because there wouldn't be potentially, if WWF wasn't here, or WWE now, there wouldn't be a network. Would WCW have something like that?
Yeah.
And how would the narrative have changed? Because WWE, the history's told by the victors. Yeah. So WWE always make out like they were the triumphant, all-conquering beast. It's just quite interesting to think about how the reverse of that coin would look at times.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many.
There's so many. Like, what if the Shield never disbanded?
What, we're still going now?
Yeah.
What if CM Punk got to pick the 3 people he actually wanted in the Shield instead of who he got?
Yeah.
Because he didn't want Roman Reigns.
Did he not?
No, he picked Rollins, he picked Ambrose, he wanted, at the time, you might not remember him, the guy, he was called Cassius Ohno in NXT, but Chris Hero. He was the person that he wanted to be in there, but WWE wanted specifically one of their not homebrewed. We'll go with homebrewed talents. So, because all the other 3 made their names elsewhere before they came to WWE, whereas Reigns was purely through the WWE training hierarchy. But yeah, that's interesting. What if we never had a Royal Rumble?
True.
Yeah, what if Pat Patton was never involved in WWE? Oh, there's so many. But I think we'll have to curtail it there, otherwise we'll turn this into like a 5-hour podcast. But no, interesting things to think about. A little bit darker, but I think there's some lighter-hearted moments.
I tried to turn a spin on mine because it had already gone a bit dark. So
I wasn't trying to be
that way.
Quite as dark as intended. Yeah. But I mean, to be fair, a lot of them,
it is what it is.
It's groundbreaking things, isn't it? Okay, well, in that case, it brings us to an end of episode 9 of the 12 Days of WrestleMas. Hopefully you've at least taken away something of value from this particular episode.
I hope so.
And are willing to tune in to episode 10 tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.